The impeachment of Donald J. Trump is over. It's done. And the results are the following. 57 senators said guilty. 43 said not guilty. It was 48 Democrats, 7 Republicans, and 2 independents. This means, for my non-American listeners, 57 saying guilty and 43 saying not guilty means he's not guilty. Means they failed to get the impeachment through the Senate, because you would need 67 votes in order to succeed. So now these results are pretty much expected. I actually thought you'd probably get like 55 or 56, so the fact that they got 57 means they were able to chip away 1 or 2 extra Republican senators, but still fell well short of what they needed in order to do it. So I think the thing that's most interesting to me is that I'm surprised that anybody is surprised by the result. And that really shows you that I think the media does a terrible job of really educating people on this stuff, because if they were educating people, everybody would have understood it's a foregone conclusion. Because not only was he going to get off, it's also like the Democrats didn't even really have a plan to apply the proper pressure or talk to certain senators behind the scenes or make a play to even have a snowball's chance in hell. It was basically doomed from the beginning, but the way the media covered it was irresponsible, because they acted like, who knows, it's up in the air. They would like have these headlines as if there was a big twist in the case now in favor of, the Democrat side. And it's like, that's really lying by omission. Because to not give people the context that this was doomed from the beginning is a crucial and important part of really understanding the full picture and really understanding what's going on here. So, of course this was going to happen. Of course they were going to lose. Really, ultimately, this was a virtue signaling exercise. The Democrats' main identity has been Trump is really bad and we hate Trump. And so they were just going with that same mindset moving forward. But here's the part that pisses me off. The part that pisses me off is they actually now breathed life into Trump 2024. That's what they did. He was at his lowest point with the attempted insurrection and the fallout from that. And then with this move, you now help the narrative of Teflon Don again. Like Teflon Don defeated another impeachment, and Trump released a statement on this, gloating about how this is the biggest witch hunt in history, and I'm fighting back and I'm winning. And so even though it was the most bipartisan impeachment in U.S. history, it also failed. I mean, you have to keep it real. Beyond that, listen, man, they could have tried to get the same result in a more substantive way. If they used the 14th Amendment, they could have banned him from ever holding public office again in the United States of America, and they wouldn't have needed 67 votes. They would have needed 60. Now, granted, it was 57, so they would have fallen short of that as well, but you would have gotten closer. And so, I mean, the main point here is, it appears to me that Democrats really do care more about the show and the virtue signal than the substance. Because if they cared about the substance, then you would have tried to do this through the 14th Amendment, and you would have had a better plan in order to succeed. But if all you care about is the show, then yeah, there you go. You had your impeachment trial, and you can wag your finger and say, Trump's really bad. Isn't Trump so bad? Trump's so terrible. And, you sort of ride that for political reasons. So you can't be surprised at the result. The most important point now is it's time to move on. It's time to move on. Trump no longer defines the political era. He's out of office. Now, he might run again in 2024, and perhaps you guys just helped him a little bit with this failed attempt, but you have to focus on the substantive issues of the day. And I wish they did that from the beginning, instead of even getting diverted and going down the impeachment path. And that's how the voters will reward you. If you get them the $2,000 checks, which they're not going to get them. If you actually effectively control COVID-19. If you focus on the substance, you'd be much better off. But they'd rather lean into the virtue signal, lean into the show, and ultimately lose. And then, by the way, pretend like it's somehow a victory, even though it's not. So time to move on, man. Trump era's done. It's in the rearview mirror. Let the Republicans have their civil war, which they are having. And the Democrats need to define themselves in a way that's politically intelligent and also substantive policy-wise. And that would be, what we always talk about on this show. Like I said, defeating COVID-19, raising wages, cutting those $2,000 checks, Medicare for all. I mean, they're obviously not going to do all these things, but this is what they should do. Donald J. Trump, yet again, defeats impeachment. Anybody who ever told you there was even a prayer of the opposite, it was just never true. And if you were going to do this, you had to do it immediately. There was a little bit of a delay, and as soon as there's a delay, the passions of that moment with the attempted insurrection, it tapers off like anything else. So you would have had to do it at the very height, and even then you would have fell short. So it's just anyway, it was mismanaged from the beginning. It was sort of unnecessary from the beginning. There's ways to punish him that might actually work, whether it's the 14th Amendment or now that he's out of office, some criminal prosecution coming out of New York or D.C. or elsewhere. But, as I said, time to move on, and don't let anybody tell you otherwise.